teased her that morning. "No, Papa? Why would they tease me?" He'd pointed at her shoes. One was a sneaker, and the other her patent leather dress shoe. He'd laughed when he told her that story. How did she walk all the way to school and home again without realizing that there was a difference in her gait or the thickness of the sole? Someone opened the apartment door, her old apartment door. The sudden sound was such a shock to Juliette that she jumped and clutched at her chest. "May I help you?" Juliette had to watch the woman's lips in order to comprehend all of her words. "I used to live here as a child," Juliette smiled. "I was just taking a sentimental walk while I was in town." "Here?" the woman asked, turning to look into her apartment. "You lived here?" She turned back to Juliette with a shake of her head. "Not recently." Juliette thrust her fingers into the tight front pockets of her jeans. "When I was a child, a long time ago, 20 years. The woman shook her head again. "Madame Guigeot?" she called down the stairs. Her words echoed around Juliette and rang like a gong in her head. She tried not to flinch. A woman hustled up the stairs. Her gray hair was brushed straight back and pulled into a short ponytail at the nape of her neck. She wore a faded blue formless dress and black tennis shoes with bare legs. "Madame Guigeot, do you recognize this woman?" the lady asked, then reached behind her and pulled her door closed. Madame Guigeot came up beside Juliette, but Juliette didn't recognize her. This woman's picture wasn't in her head at all. "I would have been a child," she explained. "I lived here before the fire. My parents' names were Marie and David DuBois." Madame Guigeot canted her head. "What fire is this? David DuBois did live here, but he didn't have a wife or child. He did have a boyfriend." "You know my father?" Juliette pulled a phone from the purse hanging from her shoulder and scrolled to his photograph. Surely Madame Guigeot was just confused. It had been a long time since the family had moved. "I know David DuBois." She took the phone from Juliette's hand and squinted down. "Yes, that's him. That's DuBois. Scientist. He moved back to the United States, if I remember right." "Yes, that's where he lives now," Juliette said. Madame Guigeot obviously remembered him. Why would she think her dad liked men? Why had she forgotten her mother or their child? Yes, Juliette concluded, this woman was simply not remembering clearly. "And we never had a fire here. Not in over 200 years, that is." Madame Guigeot handed the phone back. "I have been the concierge here since I was a teenager. I would know if there had been a fire. No fire." She waggled her finger back and forth. Confusion pulled Juliette's brows together. But there are no pictures of my mother or my childhood because they burned. Here," she gestured toward the apartment. "We lost everything. My mother saved me from the flames." And Juliette had the scars to prove it. The two women scowled at her. "I lived here," Juliette insisted. Her attention turned to the polished mahogany door. "You don't need a key to get in. You just bump your hip into the door, and it pops open. When I came home from school, I was supposed to pretend to use a key so no one would know." She moved over toward the door and looked at the woman who had come from the apartment. "May I?" She lifted her hand to give her permission. Juliette grasped the door handle and bumped her hip into it. The door popped open, just as she had been told it would. The only way Juliette knew that piece of information was she had been told. Juliette had no childhood memories of her own. But still, she felt victorious and looked up with a laugh. See, she was right. Juliette had lived here. The women started speaking back and forth in very quick French, and Juliette couldn't follow along with their words mashing into each other like that. The range of their agitated voices was too high a pitch, and their mouths moved too fast from pursed lips for Juliette to read them. Madame Guigeot turned and shooed Juliette away, literally took her two hands and shooed her away. Then Madame Guigeot lowered her tone enough that Juliette caught the next sentence. "I don't know what you are up to."